This is a case that usually familiar on the African continent, a clash between indigenous people's land rights and speculative government economic interests, in which the pursuit of resources such as those that flow from tourism and other forms of use of land for purpose of economic interest come fairly in conflict with livelihoods concerns and human rights concerns. And in this particular case, we are seeing the government of Tanzania wanting to evict indigenous Maasai people who have the right to land in the area of Loliondo, which is a division in Tanzania's northern Ngorongoro district in Arusha. It borders the Serengeti National Park that we all know, the Ngorongoro Conservation Area to the south and Kenya to the north. So that is the area where this is taking place. And this is not the first time the government has tried to evict the Maasai people. It's something that has been going on for 10 years now. The problem with this particular moment of trying to evict them has been the brutal and a very cruel security operation that the government has embarked on in an effort to pursue its objectives.
Mr. Muchena, the Tanzanian government could say that, well, you don't have proof that this land does belong to you, and we, of course, are the government and do have proof. Whether or not the proof is cooked up or, in fact, is, really valid. Is that what the case is here, where the government is telling the Maasai ethnic group that you don't actually belong here because you don't have proof that this is your land?
No, that will be speculative. The Maasai people belong to the area. They are the indigenous people to the area. You will be aware that in the 1950s, there was demarcation done by the colonial government in which Maasai people were moved. And here is a post-colonial state trying to move them again. The problem really is that you cannot evict people forcibly without abiding by international human rights obligations that the Tanzanian government is party to. Before evicting people from their land, which is indigenous to them, you have to consult them. So they need to have what we call prior informed consent that they would be moved, and you need to make arrangements for their survival and livelihoods not to be compromised when they're so moved. And in this particular case, the Maasai people have been subjected to violence, and this is the concern of Amnesty International, in which 30 people have been injured as part of the security operation. One person has died. 10 people have now been arrested and are now being accused of having killed a policeman, who is one of the fatalities that we have so far recorded. And our concern is the human rights violations that are now taking place in an area, in something that we think should never have been carried out in this brutal manner in the first place. There is also the problem that on the 25th of September in 2018, the East Africa Court of Justice issued orders which included halting any more violations of the Maasai people and their right to land. And the court was about to make its decision next week on the 22nd of June. So why rush before the court has also decided? So it is clearly a demonstration that the Tanzanian government is violating the rights of its own people, and we are calling for a halt of the operation.
Yeah. Deprose, as you're speaking about this, from what we also understand is that the government seeks to exclusively use the land for trophy hunting by a luxury hunting and safari company, that the Otolo Business Corporation organizes these hunting trips for royal families of the United Arab Emirates, as well as their guests who fly into a custom-built landing strip within the area in itself. This just points to just selfishness, as well as being able to amass private pockets, and maybe even with some government official incentives at the expense of an entire culture, an entire people's life and way of life.
That's correct. I mean, in 1992, the Tanzanian government leased the whole Loliondo division as a hunting block to a company that is from the United Arab Emirates. And this is not, again, the first time we see these things happening on the continent, in which hunting, trophy hunting, and other forms of economic exploitative developments around just making money out of lands that belong to ordinary people who need it for survival, is carried out. So this is not the first time. There is, in fact, well-known case going back to 1992. The reality of the matter here is the Tanzanian government has responsibilities under international human rights law to protect citizens from unlawful forced eviction. And we're also condemning the government for its excessive use of force, which has now resulted in the death of a person, but also in 30 people being arrested. There is also the problem of unlawful detention and not allowing those who have arrested to see their legal counsel. So violations after violations are piling on, and this is why a hold of the operation, effective consultation, as well as investigations of everything that has happened around the case in the last few days is something that Amnesty International has called for, and we hope that the government of Tanzania will do so.
Deprose, you as Amnesty International have made this very bold call. Are you at least being supported by the United Nations and the African Union? Because, you know, it's better when there's more and just not Amnesty International, because I would imagine the Tanzanian government would look at Amnesty International and think, well, I mean, it's just you are the bigger organizations, the UN, the AU, you know, any other bigger organization in the world coming to the fore to say, we are backing Amnesty International's call.
Thank you very much. The call we have made has now been sent to the global membership of Amnesty International, 10 million members, activists and supporters around the world. We are operating in 78 countries, and 78 countries that work, that do business, that relate diplomatically with Tanzania. So there is now a campaign for this call backed by millions of members of Amnesty International around the world. In the last few days, the United Nations group of experts have also issued a statement in support of the call broadly that we are making, including calling on the government to launch a prompt, independent and thorough investigation into the violations that have taken place. It's also consistent with our calls to hold the security operation. I think that as days come by or go by, you will be seeing more and more people who are speaking out. And this is not just us, but the Maasai community inside the country is demanding justice for what has just happened. Just yesterday, there was a demonstration in Nairobi in support of the Maasai community's land rights and also resisting the evictions that are forcibly being carried out. And so before you know it, I think the demands for justice for people, including realization of the human rights of the community targeted, will spread, because this is something that is consistent with many communities on the continent, but also many communities in the global south, for whom land rights, it goes beyond just right to housing. It's a source of knowledge, it's a source of identity, and it's a source of livelihoods. And we also know that the Maasai's relationship with the land is well documented as something that demonstrates their own stewardship on the land. It's not exploitative, extractive, as we see with some of the trophy hunting and other ecotourism events that are being promoted by governments as the main driver of evicting people from their local lands.
It's definitely a story that's going to be continued, but we do leave it there for this morning. Thank you very much for your time. Deprose Muchena there, Amnesty International's Director for East and Southern Africa.